My name is Dr. Tim Hopper. I am a professor in the School of Exercise Science and Physical Health Education. I am responsible for two education courses with a focus on physical health education. Working with a team of the researchers, we've had 3 SSHRC external funded projects focused on the use of digital portfolios in teacher education, in nursing, in social work, and now we're researching how teachers in BC schools are taking up digital assessments leading to portfolios. Currently, our research team has published over 15 peer-reviewed articles on the theory and application of digital portfolios. We have come to recognize sort of 4 main types of digital portfolios, plus some type of repository system that feeds into those types of portfolios. By repository, we mean a secure, online, cloud-based system that allows students to collect, organize digital artifacts based on their learning and their interest. Typically in BC schools and at UVic, this is Google Drive, though it can also be other cloud-based systems like Microsoft 360 and Dropbox. Critically, this is a place to store and organize digital artifacts. That's the key idea. From there, the 4 types that we identified are a learning portfolio. This is the most common, where students reflect on their learning in relation to personal goals, program intents, such as competencies or learning outcomes. And reflections are very revelatory. They reveal some story, often based on the artifact. And it's a sort of dialogue with self as students take ownership and responsibility for their own learning in relation to concepts in the courses they're taking. The second one is a showcase portfolio, typically modeled after sort of artists and architects who have portfolios which is the selection of their best work. And these are designed to impress, but they are very much about the best thing you've done. Accreditation portfolios, in more recent times, these are focused more on certifying for professional bodies the types of competencies and standards that they require. Often this is a type of portfolio that has a sort of template, and you build a reflection evidence that has specifically designed proficiency scales that the student tries to connect to and justify their assessment. Then our final one is called a network portfolio. This type focuses on sharing artifacts and reflections with a particular audience in mind, such as peers, often other teachers, or particular people who will be interested in the content being shared. Across a university program, this is particularly useful because instructors could actually see what students have done in previous classes. So it sort of networks students' learning. And it reminds students of the concepts they've learned in a previous class that they can then apply as they develop in a program. This really helps develop program coherence. In our experience, the network idea builds a sort of professional learning network which allows the program to develop this sort of sense of confidence in the case of my classes, students becoming teachers. They see themselves developing over time. I tend to use a combination of all 4 of these types. The key is learning to store artifacts and develop this sort of space where you look and examine your own learning. At UVic, we use UVic Google Drive, and we learn in our program competencies by sharing that with our peers, and finally with an exit interview with colleagues from the field of education. To develop this process, we use a system called folios.ca, which is a Mahara e-portfolio software, it's open source software. And we've located this in BC, so therefore it's BC Freedom of Information Protection Privacy Act, FIPA compliant. Students can store their personal information there. And it's very powerful because you decide who you share it with. No one can see it unless you decide. For example, in my current course, I have 2 school principals who will do exit interviews for me next week. The students taught in their school, their first ever physical education classes. They taught middle school students. They generate artifacts, their planning, assessment. There's little video clips that some of the students in the school developed. They were doing different type of assignments. One were doing inventing games. And the principals are now going to interview my student teachers on their learning in relation to the competencies in the program. This sort of creates that network idea, plus it links us to the field, and it gives my student teachers a chance to practice being interviewed. And as it happens, these 2 principals could be interviewing them in 2 years' time to enter into the school district in order to get a job. So what we've come to do is we sort of mastery level where we say to students that if it reaches a certain level, then it passes, and we use a B+ as sort of the passing mark. If it doesn't, you get feedback and you resubmit, and you've got to get to that level. So it really drives the students towards a professional standard rather than differentiating marks between students. If they want to get in the A range, then they put in a proposal for an extension project which applies materials from class concepts that would benefit the rest of the class. What I find when I do this is I am really now helping students develop artifacts of their learning by giving them feedback to how to improve and develop that. So now they are sort of becoming professionals. They're not students anymore. They're thinking like a teacher. So my assessment is really to help them learn how to become a teacher. Well, if you think about it, when you put those artifacts in and you reflect on it, it becomes a memory tool. As soon as you put a video, an image with something, you can remember all sorts of things about an event that you've totally forgotten about. So if you did that, students actually start to remember the concepts they've learned. And so we started doing in our program, we do sport performance analysis classes. They're very small, but students are starting to develop portfolios at the end of those classes. And so by the time they get to me in the 4th year, those portfolios, those collections are still there. They can recall that and start applying that materials to teach out in the schools. It also helps students develop personal goal setting based on awareness of their own learning. What do I need to now do to develop my professional identity? What do I need to learn? Where do I need to volunteer to go and get more experiences as I become a teacher? And the other thing is I believe it's a genuine attempt to decolonize learning. Because with colonizers, we tend to limit learning to what we value. But by decolonizing, you're opening up to the learner in a very indigenous way to sort of say, what is most important for the community in which I now want to live in or work in? And so by doing that, it's real life applications. It's more of a distributed cognition idea because now the world of practice is driving my learning. So from an indigenous experiential learning perspective, we are valuing a person's ability to learn independently by observing, listening, participating, and we are just there to facilitate, not to determine what you have to learn. So the other thing is BC schools are moving this way. This is now the common process. Proficiency scales is what all the schools will come to next year. They're piloting it across the province. And so these student teachers are coming in, these teachers are now teaching students, and these students will be coming to university with this type of mindset. They have been doing this type of assessment. So we measure through grades, yet students are coming in with this sort of experiential based learning that's very rich. This means more and more students will come to universities having learned in a different form of assessment. Are we ready for them?